Today we will be solving multi-step equations. After this lesson, you will be able to use inverse operations and the distributive property to solve multi-step equations. We'll begin this lesson with a couple word problems. The first word problem says the height in inches of a plant after t days is 1/2 t plus 6. After how many days is the plant 21 inches tall? When I'm looking at word problems, I like to underline different information to help me pick out what's important and weed out all of the extras that I don't really need. When I reread this again, it says the height in inches. That sounds important to know that I'm looking at the height of a plant after t days. That's going to be specific to my situation here, so that is important, is 1/2 t plus 6. So there's an expression for me to use. Then I get into the equation, or the question. It says, after how many days is the plant 21 inches tall? So it's asking me, how many days will the plant be 21 inches tall? It gives me this expression in terms of t, where t is the number of days. So I want to take this expression and write an equation in order to solve. I'll begin with the expression, which is 1/2 t, remember is days, plus 6, and that first sentence told me that that expression is the, again, height in inches. So I'm going to write equals, and that question at the bottom says how many days, well there's my t, is the plant 21 inches tall? And if it said this expression is the height in inches, then that means that we want to know when is it equal to 21 inches. And then we're going to solve it. So this is where we are going to get into our multi-step equations. In our multi-step equations, we're just going to do those inverse operations more than one time, so in multiple steps. This example is called a two-step problem, so we'll have to do two inverse operations. When we're looking at the problem, we want to first identify where the t is, or the variable is, see what's being done to it. So I have multiplication being done to it, and I have addition being done to it. So I need to remember my order of operations, but I need to do them backwards. So remember in class we talked about our parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. And we would go top at the parentheses and work our way down to addition and subtraction. Now keep in mind this is the majority of the cases that you are going to work backwards this way. There are going to be some cases where we have to deal with parentheses first, or some other different things going on, but this is a good way to get started. So I'm going to move over any addition or subtraction, and we said we had an add 6, so I need to subtract 6 to both sides to get rid of that operation, or do the inverse operation. Remember, the positive 6 and a negative 6 cancels out, and so I'm just left with 1/2 t equals 15. Now I need to get rid of that multiplication, or times by a half, and in order to do that I can either divide by the 1/2, or I can remember that I can multiply by the reciprocal. So you can either write out the division first and then multiply by the reciprocal, or you can multiply by the reciprocal right away. It is up to you. So I have a 2 on the top and the bottom, they cross off, 1 on the top and the bottom, that crosses off as well. Remember, when those things cross off, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that means I have 1t, or t is 30. And in this case, it's asking me something specific, so I don't want to just give the answer of 30. I want to describe what that is. So in this case, it's going to be 30 days. I can always double check and plug that back in to make sure that I am correct with that, which is always a good idea to do at least a mental check there. We're going to move on to number 2. It says Kendra paid $7 for her admission ticket, so I'm going to underline that, to the fair, and bought 12 ride tickets. She spent a total of $31 on admission and ride tickets. Write and solve an equation to find the cost of one ride. Looking back at the question, it is asking the cost for one ride, so that is important as we are trying to write our equation for here. it says, going back to my important information, it says that she spent $7 on her admission ticket and bought 12 ride tickets. So in addition to that $7, she bought 12 ride tickets, but we don't know how much those tickets cost. So if maybe they were $1 each, it would be just $12. If they were $2 each, it'd be $24, but we don't know. So we want to go 12 times the number of tickets, or the cost of tickets, sorry, which we could go C for cost, equals a total of $31 dollars that she spent. Now it's a two-step problem, and I'm going to work my way backwards again. I have this 7 right here, and I have a multiply by a positive 12. Be really careful with that positive sign right there. That just means that that's a positive 12. We have to imagine that there would be a plus sign in front of this 7 to know that if that was positive, or there would be a negative sign in front of there if it was negative. So the opposite of adding 7, or a positive 7, would be subtracting 7 to both sides. And so I get 31 minus 7 is 24. And then I have 12 times C, so I need to undo the time, so I'm going to divide by 12, and I get C equals 2. So each ticket cost $2. Again, I want to add a little bit more information to that. Let's move on to some other problems that are non-word problems. In number 3, we have some like terms that we need to combine. We've talked about like terms in the past. We see these two terms right here that both have M in it, so we want to combine those before we do anything else. So always look to combine terms that are on the same side of the equal sign. And a good visual for you to see if they're on the same side is to write a little line through the equal sign. And if it's on the same side of that line, then you want to combine the like terms. You don't have to do any moving of the terms over. Looking at my like terms, negative 2m plus 4m, that gives me 2m. Still have that plus 5 equals negative 3. Now I'm into a two-step problem where I can move over my plus 5. So I need to do the opposite operation. I need to subtract 5. I get 2m equals negative 3 minus 5. So I spend $3, spend $5. I've spent $8. I'm going to divide by 2. And I get m equals negative 4. I want to do a check with you. Be sure you're writing this with me, because it's a little different than our other checks, because now we have two spots that we need to put our m value in, and I want to make sure that you guys are able to understand how to do that. I plugged in that negative 4 in both of the m locations, so here and here, and then I'm just going to follow my order of operations. Now I'm going to make sure that I do my multiplication first in this case, and then do any addition. So I'm going to multiply negative 2 times negative 4, get positive 8, and then multiply positive 4 times negative 4, get negative 16. Combine my like terms. 8 minus 16 is negative 8, plus 5 gives us negative 3, which is what I wanted. So it does check out to work. Why don't you guys pause the video and see if you can do number 4 on your own. In problem number 4, we have 1/3 a plus 7 equals 4. I'm going to draw that same line like I did in that last problem to help us get a visual of when we are moving things across the line and needing to do that inverse operation. To get the a by itself, I'm going to get rid of this add 7 first, so I need to do the inverse operation, minusing 7. Positive 7, negative 7 crosses off. I have 1/3 a equals 4, take away 7 is going to give me a negative 3. Now I need to get rid of that 1/3 times. Remember, there's that little multiplication there. I can either write divide by 1/3, or I can jump right into that multiply by the reciprocal right away. Since the other side is a whole number, I really don't have to write that over 1 on the right hand side if that confuses me. On the left hand side, the 3's cross off into 1's. So I just get 1a, or a equals negative 9. Don't forget to do a little check on that. Let's get on with our last couple problems here. In our last problems, we're going to have parentheses in there. And we talked briefly in class about these parentheses and how we need to use the distributive property. So what this means, remember in class we talked about how, I'll actually jump down to number 6, how this says we have 2 of these groups right here. So I could either repeat these groups twice and then combine like terms, or I can just distribute, aka multiply that 2 to each part and quickly figure out how many I have instead of writing it out repeatedly. Remember, repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. Multiplication is just a quicker avenue to get there. When I have any parentheses in my equations, I want to do that first. So this is a case where you're not going to do the order of operations backwards. You do actually look for parentheses, and when you see those parentheses, you need to distribute right away, and then you can go through your order of operations backwards. So I'm going to multiply here, and I'm going to go negative 4 times 3g, get negative 12g. And be really careful here when I multiply. I am multiplying that negative 4 to the negative 5. That is a minus sign, but remember a minus sign is a negative sign. So I have negative 4 times negative 5 gives me positive 20. And I'm definitely going to write my line there so I can look for any like terms. And even though this isn't the best looking g there, I do have 2 like terms. I have a negative 12g and I have a positive 10g that I can combine. So if I spend $12 and I have $10, I'm still going to owe $2. So negative 2g plus 20 equals 19. Now I'm on to my 2-step problem, and I have a add 20, so I need to subtract 20. I get negative 2g equals negative 1, and then I have negative 2 times. So the most common mistake here is to think that you need to add this. Remember to think about that little multiplication symbol there, or even write it like how I did. So then you know that you are going to divide by negative 2. So we don't get mixed up there, and we get g equals 1/2. When you are going to check these guys, make sure that you plug it into both locations, here and here, in order to have the problem work out correctly. Why don't you guys pause the video and try number 6 on your own. In problem number 6, we're going to start out the same way. We're going to use that distributive property. And so we get 2 times 4 gives us 8. And then again, 2 times negative 2w gives us negative 4w minus 8 equals negative 4. I'm going to draw that line there. And I see a couple like terms. I see I have an 8 and a negative 8 right there. So actually 8 minus 8, they cross off. So I get negative 4w equals negative 4. And now I only have one more step to do, remembering that there's that little multiplication symbol there. I'm going to divide by negative 4 and get w equals 1. This one I will do the check real quick to show you guys. So I get 4 minus 2 times 1 minus 8 equals negative 4. So I would follow my order of operations. I'd simplify inside the parentheses, so I'm going to multiply here first and get 2. And then I'm going to still work inside that parenthesis, and I'm going to get 4 minus 2 is 2, and I times by the outside number to give me 4, and then I'll minus my 8, which is negative 4. So that one does check. Be sure in your summary you write 2 to 3 sentences on how to solve multi-step equations. Don't forget, if you have any questions or confusions, you can put that down as well. And try to answer the question: 3 times 2x minus 1 equals 21.